Hello everyone, welcome to my channel and welcome to the Magical Readathon TBR and character creation video where I'm going to basically go over all the books that I want to read for the Magical Readathon Orilion, which is hosted by Book Roast. I believe her name is G. I'll have her channel down in the description below. And I'm also going to talk about kind of like the books that I'm going to be reading for that TBR and also the books that I want to read for the character creation for that readathon that's going to be carrying on into 2022. So I have a lot of books here piled up next to me. I'm basically going to go over every book that I'm supposed to read in the path that it's supposed to be taken through what's called the Novice Path, I believe is what the Orilion kind of readathon is based on for this part of it for the month of September. So I'm going to go over all of the books that I'm reading. Some of them are going to be carried over from my September TBR video, which you would have seen already. If you haven't already, please check it out. I'm hopefully going to be able to read a couple of them because of the September TBR. And I know for a fact I'm not going to be able to read all of these in the month of September. You only have to read 2 of them in order to have succeeded this readathon. I will read them, though, over the next 2 or 3 months. So I thought I would go ahead and give a description of them and kind of like what path, what part of this readathon they entail. And I'll quickly go over my the reasons why I chose the character creation paths for my character and also the books that go in towards that. So in the path, and I'll go ahead and show a graphic of what the map looks like. Again, all of these graphics, all this information can be seen on Book Roast's kind of like introduction video for this readathon. And it's a very good video, so I definitely highly check it out. The first path, the first prompt is for the Novice Path, and if you're wondering, I'm kind of looking back here to see kind of what the prompts are, and like I have like a little spread here that I had shown in my vlog. So if you want to go ahead and check out that vlog, I actually show you what the prompts look like, what that spread looks like. But I have the list of the prompts here and like kind of what they do. So if I'm looking over here, don't mind me. But the first path is a Novice Path, and that prompt is to read a book with a map in it. And I have a lot of books with maps, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to have for this prompt because it's going to definitely be read in the month of September. It is the first prompt. And I went ahead and chose Legendary by Stephanie Garber. It is the second book in the Caravel trilogy. I believe that this has a map at least. Yeah, so it has a map of Caravel. Actually, I think it's Valenda is what it is. So this must be like a city within like the Caravel world. But in case you don't know, Caravel is basically a story about this girl Donatella that basically she went to this game called Caravel, which is this like very magical game that's like it's like a magical game for a week. It's like a week long, and basically you have to survive the night. It's like it kind of makes you go insane because it's so different from what the world is. But it's a very special event that only people that are invited to can go to. And some people even just spectate besides just playing. And so Donatella had joined the game for the first time ever. She had been asking all throughout her childhood to be able to go to the games because her grandmother had went and told her how amazing it was. And so she finally was invited by the games master to come. And she was so excited about it, but then she quickly realized that like it was a mistake to have sent these letters because she found out that her sister was held captive by the games master. And the whole point of the game was to try and find her sister and to free her, to be able to keep her alive. And it was a very interesting story. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I liked the story. I thought the writing was a little young, and I thought that some of the like plot points were a little shallow, like not super great. But at the same time, I really did still enjoy the story, and I still do want to read the series. And so I thought I would pick up the second book to give it another chance to really like see if the story progresses and to see if it like gets any better. And I thought this would be a good prompt for the first prompt of the readathon. So the second prompt in the second kind of path in this readathon is the Ashtoren Tree, and it is a book that keeps tempting you or that's on top of your TBR. The book that's been on top of my TBR that I haven't necessarily had for a long time, but that I got in the last 2 months and that I'm just so excited to read, and I've had so many people hype this up, is Middle Game by Seanan Mcguire. This is a book that Ro over at Wandering Through Worlds has been hyping for months, that I've been really wanting to read. I've never read a Seanan Mcguire book. This is definitely one that I'm super excited to read. This was also part of my September TBR, so I'm without a doubt going to be reading this, which is good because it is the second prompt. And just to give you a little description, meet Roger, skilled with words. Languages come easily to him. He instinctively understands how the world works through the power of story. Meet Dodger, his twin. Numbers are her world, her obsession, her everything. All she understands, she does through the power of math. Roger and Dodger aren't exactly human, though they don't realize it. They aren't exactly gods either, not entirely, not yet. So that's all I'm gonna say. I'm really excited. I've heard it's like timey-wimey stuff happens, that it's kind of dark, that it's a little confusing until you start reading more and more of it, and then like stuff starts to kind of make sense throughout the story. I'm really excited to read it. It's a little bit long. It's about 520 pages, but I'm so excited to finally get a chance to read this. And I think I heard that there is going to be a sequel to this, or like a companion book that's coming out, and I'm going to want to read that, of course, when I finish this. So I'm really excited to finally be able to get a chance to read this for both my September TBR from Bookoplathon and for the Magical Readathon. Okay, so the third book, the third prompt, the third part of this readathon is for the Mists of Solitude, and that prompt is to read a standalone book. I ended up choosing Yolk by Mary H.K. Choi, which is also part of my September TBR. I'm really excited. I actually have just started reading it. This is the 2nd of September. To kind of break the fourth wall, show you like when I'm recording this. But I'm really excited to finally be able to read this. I've been wanting to read it for a very long time. Like I said, it's part of my September TBR. It's actually the first book that I'm reading. And just to give you a little bit of a description for what the story is, Jane and June are nothing alike. June is 3 years older, a classic firstborn narc with a vile finance job in a soulless apartment, according to Jane. Jane, on the other hand, is an emotionally stunted, self-obsessed crybaby who lives in squalor, has egregious taste in men, and needs to get her ass to class. June's words. Once thick as thieves, these sisters who moved from Seoul to San Antonio and finally New York don't want anything to do with each other until June gets cancer, and Jane becomes the only one who can help her. Flung together by sickness and bound by family secrets, will the sisters learn more about themselves and each other than they're willing to confront. So it's a contemporary book. It's been recommended to me by several people. I'm really excited to finally get my hands on it, and I am going to be reading this. I'm already reading this for the readathon and for my September TBR. Okay, so the fourth prompt, the fourth part of this readathon, Ruin of the Sky, and that one is to read a book featuring ghosts, haunted house, or other supernatural elements. Now, me being a huge fan of Halloween and like horror, scary stuff, I'm really excited to be able to read this book, and I'm definitely going to try and read it, even though it's not technically part of my September TBR. It is Ghost Walk by Brian Keene. I actually got this book from a little library in my neighborhood, so I'm really excited to finally be able to read this. It's not super long, but the description says, there are all kinds of legends about Lehorn Hollow. Everything from ghosts to a goat man are said to haunt the woods. So it's the perfect place for Ken Ripple to set up his latest haunted attraction. Halloween is coming, and Ripple knows folks will come from miles around to walk down the spooky trail and get scared witless. But there's one thing Ripple hasn't counted on. Those legends aren't just talk. Evil really does wait in the woods. Soon the unexpected customers will pay their money and get in line to die. I've never heard of this author. I'm really excited to finally be able to read it. I want to read more horror authors besides just Stephen King, so I'm really excited to finally be able to get my hands on this. And it seems like he's also written books like Dark Hollow and Dead Sea, so if I like this, I will definitely check those out. But yeah, really excited to be able to read this. Okay, the fifth part of the readathon is for Obsidian Falls, and that is to read a thriller or a mystery. Again, kind of going along with the spooky, with the like haunted horror kind of esque themes of Halloween because of a thriller aspect. I'm really excited to read this one. I got this in the last month's, I think it was the August or the July's, I can't remember, book of the month. But it is 56 Days by Catherine Ryan Howard. This is actually really interesting because it's one of the first books I've ever read that has that is kind of like set in COVID time, set in like the 2020s when COVID was really bad, when quarantine was happening everywhere around the world. And it's like a story about these people that live in this like apartment that moved in right before COVID hit. and how like there's a murder that happens and they don't really know, like they kind of know who the killer is, but they don't know why or how. Like they don't know all the other answers to the questions. So I'm really excited about this. It's like a thriller mystery. It's only 300 pages. I think there's like mixed media in this. Like it looks like there's a couple texts and stuff. So I'm really excited to finally be able to read this, and I'm hoping to get to this by this month, but knowing my busy schedule, I might not, but I definitely will be reading this at least in October. All right, so the sixth book, the sixth prompt for the Magical Readathon, I also have in my September TBR. It is Severance by Ling Ma. This is for the Tower of Rumination, which is reading a 5-star prediction. Now, I wanted to choose The Maidens by Alex Michaelides because that was from the Merlin Readathon that I still haven't been able to read. It was a 5-star prediction for that readathon. I didn't choose that one. I am actually going to be reading that hopefully in October for Spoopathon, which, in case you don't know, is a readathon for October hosted by Spoops over at Spoopy Hole. I'll leave that in the description if I can remember. But anyway, I'm going to be reading that for that one. This one, however, is part of my September TBR. I'm super, super excited to finally read this. It's another kind of dystopian, like, world's ending, contagion has been spreading. Again, another kind of COVID-esque book. I actually know that someone that I follow on BookTube, I believe it was Noelle Gallagher, has read this during COVID, and she said that like it was kind of triggering because of how similar it was to what we were experiencing a year or two ago. But I'm really, really excited to finally be able to get my hands on it and to finally read it. There isn't a description that I can see for it, but I'm really excited about this because it's a POC book. That this person comes from China, and I'm just really excited to finally be able to start reading this. So even though it's pretty far down in the readathon for the Magical Readathon, it is one of my prompts for my September TBR, so I will be getting to this book. Okay, the seventh prompt, the seventh book for the Magical Readathon is for the Orilion Academy arc, and it is a book with a school setting. Now, I actually don't have a lot of books with school settings. I have a few of them, but they're kind of big, or they're going to be kind of hard for me to be able to fit in. Not that I necessarily think I'm going to be able to read this month, but like I just didn't want to make it harder on myself in the future. So I ended up deciding on Sweet Cute by Emma Lord. I believe this is in a school setting. I'm not 100% sure. I'm like 90% sure, but it's actually a book I've been wanting to read for a long time. I actually got this as a $5 book at Barnes & Noble. Because they usually have like a book that you can buy. If you buy like a coffee or something at the cafe, you can get this for $5 kind of a thing. So I was interested in it. It's a contemporary, and the description says, meet Pepper, swim team captain, chronic overachiever, and all-around perfectionist. Her family may be falling apart, but their massive fast food chain is booming. Mainly thanks to Pepper, who is barely managing to juggle real life while secretly running Big League Burger's massive Twitter account. Enter Jack, class clown and constant thorn in Pepper's side. When he isn't trying to duck out of his obscenely popular twin's shadow, he's busy working in his family's deli. His relationship with the business that holds his future may be love-hate, but when Big League Burger steals his grandma's iconic grilled cheese recipe, he'll do whatever it takes to take them down one tweet at a time. So this is kind of like Romeo and Juliet, enemies to lovers, kind of a feel of a story, but with like different competing fast food restaurants and also Twitter matches. Which I think is really actually kind of interesting. I've never seen a book that kind of like used Twitter and Facebook, like social media, to kind of fight each other. I'm sure there's quite a few books that are like that. If you have any suggestions for books like that, actually leave them down in the comments. But yeah, I'm actually excited to finally be able to get my hand, like to finally start reading this book. I've had it for a very long time. So yeah, I'm excited that this is going to be a prompt for the readathon. Okay, so those were all of the prompts, all of the books for like the main readathon for the path that you have to take from that map that I showed. Now there are 3 other books, 3 other prompts that I have to fulfill before April of 2022. And this is for the character creation. So part of this readathon, it's kind of like, it's actually really interesting because G put together this idea of you have this readathon in the month of September that takes you down a path. Now, that's only the beginning of this story. This whole world that she has created, Orilion, is kind of like leading you, this readathon leads you to the main school, to the main like concept of this world that she has created. And so like it's kind of to prepare you along the path. And actually it's really cool because in the Discord for it, which you can find if you go to that intro video that she created, she's been posting like almost every day a different post kind of describing like scenes that you're experiencing while you're doing it, and you can react with emojis and stuff like that. It's really, really interesting. It's kind of like you're in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and that like the GM is explaining to you like the scenes that you're seeing, like stuff that you're going through. So those are all the books for the main path, and then there's also a couple books, a couple prompts that you have to choose in order to create your character. Now I decided to actually create my character based off of the Dungeons and Dragons character that I am playing in the group that I play in. I'm actually really excited because it's kind of a variation on him. I wasn't able to like make him exactly the way he is in my campaign, but I love him. His name is Lucius Nowhere. He is such a fun character to play, and I've been having so much fun with him. I'll actually go into a bit more detail about him if you're interested, and about this character that I'm creating for the Magical Readathon in the future. But I wanted to just quickly go over the prompts that I chose for like the different description of him, and to kind of give you like an idea of what books I'm choosing for those prompts. So for the first prompt, you have to choose like whether or not they live in like a forest setting or more of an urban setting. And I chose urban because Lucius definitely comes from a city that is a seaport city. It's very crowded. It has a lot of like commerce that goes back and forth. He actually is kind of like one of those people that steals from, you know, pickpockets, and like he's a thief kind of a thing. So I chose the urban kind of background, and the prompt for that is a book set in a city or a town. Part of the reason why I chose this also is because I really wanted to read this book very soon, and it is the third book in V.E. Schwab's Magic Trilogy. It is A Conjuring of Light. I am so excited to read this book. It is thick, but it is the third book in the trilogy. I'm reading the second book right now for the month of September, so I'm hoping to be able to get to this. I don't think it's September, but hopefully October. It's so exciting. If you don't know already, this trilogy is based around these two characters. Kel, who is a Antari, which is a person that can go between worlds. He has like magic for like every type of magic. There's like water, air, earth, fire, and blood, and bone. I don't know if bone is one of them, actually. I know blood is. But there's like 5 different types of magic that you can control. Most people can only control one. Only Antari can control all of them, including the blood magic. And so he can go between worlds, and there's like these different types of worlds that have different forms of magic involved in them. There's Grey London. All of them are considered Londons in a way, because that's like the main focus of the story. Grey London is our world. It has hardly any magic at all. It's very much just kind of like plain, boring. Then there's Red London, which is where Kel is from, and it is just filled with magic. Magic is everywhere. Everyone uses magic. It's very colorful. It's very vibrant. It's very alive. There's White London, which has like had magic almost taken from them. Like they barely have any magic left. They're kind of like fighting to keep control of the what magic they can by like carving runes into their skin and stealing people's lives in order to like be able to take their magic from them. And it's a very vicious and like chaotic world. And then there's Black London, which is where this like magical presence has gone crazy. Like magic has kind of turned into this form, and it has basically rampaged and destroyed that world to the point where the Antari had to basically cut off magic from that world. And he's the only one that can kind of pass between these worlds at this point. So in the first book, an artifact from Black London kind of escapes, and it kind of causes havoc between the different other Londons, because it's kind of starting to try and manifest into destroy the world like it was trying to do with Black London. It's really interesting because so Kel is like kind of fighting this, and there's another person, Lila Bard is from Grey London, but she gets transported to Red London in the first book. And she, like, between those two, they have like a very interesting dynamic going between them, and they have very different worlds, or not even different worlds, but different stories that kind of goes between those two. The first book was really interesting. The second book was a lead up. It had a lot of plot, a lot of background kind of building up throughout the story, leading up to this third book, A Conjuring of Light. I'm really, really excited. I just finished the second book, and I'm really, really excited to start reading the third book. I don't know why I keep saying really excited. So I'm happy to be able to fit this into a prompt, because it's just going to give me that much more motivation to be able to finally read it. So for the second choice you had to make for your character, you had to choose the kind of province, the kind of area that they live in. So there are different kind of islands throughout this world, and they all have different environments, different like social concepts, all that kind of stuff. So I chose the island of Eartheria. The prompt for that is to read a book that features Fae or Elven characters. I really thought that this world was interesting, and if you want to hear a description about what that world is, I'll talk about it in the future, but you can also check out that video again that I talked about with Book Roast. The book that I chose for this, I know some of my friends are going to be really, really happy that I am finally starting to read this series. It is The Legend of Dritz by R.A. Salvatore. This is the first 3 books in the series, Homeland, Exile, and Soren. I'm so excited to finally start reading this. I've heard so many good things about it. It's a world based around Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition with the Forgotten Realms, and I'm just really excited. It has a main character that is a drow, which is like a underworld fae, or underdark fae I should say, or elf. I don't know why I keep saying the wrong things, but anyway, I'm just really excited to read this. It's really thick because it has the first 3 books in it. So technically I only have to read the first book to be able to fulfill this prompt, but I'm going that one step farther since this is something that I don't have to fulfill until April, and I'm going to read this entire book. Yeah, I believe I have the first 10 books in this series, and there's like 17 or 19 books in this series, I think, and it's still going. So I'm really excited to finally be able to start reading this. And then the final book that I'm going to talk about in this video, the final book for these prompts for my character creation, is the heritage of the characters. So like what kind of race, what kind of character this is. Now my character Lucius is like an elemental sorcerer, so he like has this like elemental magic that's kind of built up inside of him, and he's learning more about it as we go in the campaign. To kind of go in line with that, to make it as close to my character for my Dungeons & Dragons campaign as I can, I chose Earthling, which has to do with like the elements, and the prompt for that is to read a book with elemental magic or an element word in the book or series title, and that could be like air, fire, earth, or water, and I chose Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boley. I'm really excited to read this. My fiance Lucas actually picked this book out at Target, and I'm really excited to finally be able to read this. The cover looks beautiful. I mean, just look at it. Like, even the back looks actually really pretty. So I'm really glad that I'm actually able to read this. The description, because I really haven't looked at this too much myself, the description says, 18-year-old Donis Fontaine has never quite fit in, both in her hometown and on a nearby Ojibwe reservation. She dreams of a fresh start at college, but when family tragedy strikes, Donis puts her future on hold to look after her fragile mother. The only bright spot is meeting Jamie, the charming new recruit on her brother's Levy's hockey team. Yet even as Donis falls for Jamie, she senses the dashing hockey star is hiding something. Everything comes to light when Donis witnesses a shocking murder, thrusting her into an FBI investigation of a lethal new drug. So this is really interesting. I think it's like a mystery kind of story, but with like a fantastical kind of element with it, with the new drug. I'm really excited to be able to read this. I've been wanting to ever since we saw it about a month or so ago, and it is going to be my last prompt for that readathon. Okay, so that is everything that I have for this readathon. So it's a very big readathon, obviously. It has, I believe it was 7 or 8 prompts to kind of go along that path, and then there's also the 3 prompts to kind of fill in your character. This is definitely not something that I'm going to be able to finish in the month of September because I just started school, and I also have the Bookoplathon books I have to try and finish, and that I will have to finish. That is part of my TBR. But I will read as much as I can. I will definitely be able to read the first 2, if not a few more, because they are a part of my TBR. And yeah, I have until April to read those last couple, so I'm really excited to be able to get to these books. They are books that I've been really looking forward to for a long time, and I hope you're also joining us in this journey through the Magical Readathon Orilion. I'm sorry that I didn't mention it in my TBR video. I wasn't even sure if I was going to do the readathon, but it just was too exciting and too kind of on brand with this channel to not have done it. If you're excited to, you know, come along the journey with me and to watch like the reading vlogs that I have with these, to find out more about my character in the future, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to my channel if you want more content from me, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!